Why is India selectively blind to Pakistan's Chinese-made fighters in its war report? On May 25, 2025, Indian think tanks and media released a high-profile war damage report called Operation Vermilion, claiming that the Pakistan Air Force lost $7.6 billion worth of military assets, including 8 F-160s, 2 Mirage 5s, 1 Il-78 refueling aircraft, and 1 HQ-9 air defense system to Pakistan's main force in the conflict. The report claimed that the Pakistani Air Force lost $7.6 billion worth of military assets in the conflict, including 8 F-160, 2 Mirage 5, 1 Il-78 refueling plane, and 1 set of HQ-9 air defense system, but did not mention a word about the Pakistani main combat aircraft J-10CE and JF-17. Dragon. This report not only triggered international skepticism due to contradictory data, but also exposed the huge gap between India's military propaganda and actual combat capability. If it is really as it says, destroying half of the PAF's combat power, why India's follow-up offensive came to an abrupt end, and even avoided talking about the J-10CE. Tense, this double game of public opinion and battlefield reflects not only the power struggle in the sky of South Asia, but also the complex truth that technology and politics are intertwined in the global arms race. India's war report released this time can be called Data Carnival, claiming that in the air shot down 4 F-160, 2 Mirage 5, 1 Il-78 refueling aircraft, the ground to destroy 4 F-160, 1 C-130H transport aircraft, and Saab 2000 AWACS and other targets. The total loss evaluation of up to $7.6 billion. However, there are multiple loopholes behind these figures. First, the United States delivered only 6 of the latest F-160 to Pakistan. India claimed to have destroyed 8, a direct breakthrough in the physical ceiling. Second, as early as the first day of the conflict, Pakistan openly stated that the main forces involved in the war for the J-10CE and the Kingpin, Block 3, F-16 due to the United States use restrictions did not participate in the operation. The F-16 was not involved in the operation due to restrictions on its use by the US side, which was selectively ignored in the Indian war report. What's more intriguing is that the report deliberately avoids the results of the previously claimed downing of the Dragon, and instead points the finger at the US-made equipment, which is questioned by experts as using the virtual loss of the F-16 to cover up the embarrassment of the Rafales being shot down. Previously, the Pakistani side has confirmed through the wreckage photos shot down 3 Indian Rafale, and India has never publicly refuted. Behind this digital magic is India's attempt to reshape the narrative dominance by exaggerating enemy losses. Since the first day of the air war on May 7, the Indian side suffered 7-1 after the tragic battle loss ratio. India's domestic public opinion pressure increased dramatically. In order to divert attention, Indian think tanks will focus on the destruction of high-value targets, such as claiming to strike the Pakistani Early Warning Command Center, air defense radar positions and other facilities, but the lack of satellite imagery or third-party verification, but by the Pakistani side to the intact base of the aerial video. India's deliberate avoidance of the J-10CE actually stems from the bitter technical lessons of the actual battle. 8 May Air War. The Pakistani J-10CE with PL-15E over-the-horizon missiles and ZDK-03 early warning aircraft system support, 120 kilometers away from the precise downing of 3 Rafale, and the Indian side proud of the Shooting Star Meteor missiles due to radar performance limitations, the actual effective range of less than 100 kilometers, resulting in Rafale before entering the attack range will be locked. More fatal is that India's early warning aircraft and Rafale data chain integration failure, so that the system in the confrontation has been reduced to information island, while the Pakistani side, relying on China to provide the battlefield sensing network, realizing the first enemy to find the first enemy to open fire. Overwhelmingly, the Pakistani side, relying on the battlefield sensing network provided by China, realized the overwhelming advantage of first enemy discovery, first enemy fire. This generation difference is not only reflected in the hardware. J-10CE gallium nitride radar T are components far more than the number of Rafale gallium arsenide radar, but also expose the Indian Army universal brand. Poor compatibility of equipment. Systematic combat capability is weak. In this regard, India has tried to shift the focus of attention through public opinion manipulation. On the one hand, its think tank report emphasized that the Pakistani side mixed use of Chinese and American weapons, lead to confusion in combat readiness, but ignored the fact that 85% of the equipment of the Pakistani Air Force has been armored. On the other hand, the results of the war will focus on the US-made F-16, not only to cater to the anti-American sentiment of the transfer of contradictions, but also trying to procure more Rafale momentum. Dassault, due to Rafale combat performance setbacks, has urgently suspended sales in the Middle East in commitment to upgrade electronic warfare systems for India. This, politically correct, oriented compilation of war reports, but let India into a deeper crisis of confidence. The US State Department explicitly denied that the F-16 participated in the war. Loma even delivery data to refute the 8 destroyed, said, resulting in India's narrative in the international community to further lose focus. The result is that India's narrative has lost further focus in the international community. In an attempt to save face, India launched a surprise attack on Pakistan's Bolari airbase half an hour before the signing of the ceasefire agreement, using Brahmos supersonic missiles, resulting in the deaths of 5 pilots, including ace pilot Lt Col Usman Yusuf. Although this move briefly boosted morale, it exposed the short-sightedness of India's strategy. Brahmos missiles cost as much as $3 million per unit, and the target of the strike is only the runway and hangars that can be quickly repaired, while the Pakistani side can use $200,000 anti-aircraft missiles to shoot down the Rafale, which is valued at $240 million US. What is more ironic is that the incident of India mistakenly shooting down its own helicopters in this operation has reappeared, exposing the chronic problem of its confused enemy identification system and ineffective chain of command. Pakistan's air defense system, BIAS, also provides India with a chance to take advantage of. Although the Pakistani side is equipped with HQ-9B air defense system, but the military spending constraints make its priority to protect the capital. The border bases rely on man-portable air defense systems and old radar. Early warning time is compressed to a few minutes. However, this vulnerability is difficult to hide the failure of India's overall tactics. Its universal brand equipment policy has led to a split in the data chain standard. Su-30 MKI, MiG-29 and Rafale cannot achieve information sharing, and the systematic combat is completely inferior. The exaggerated narrative of India's war report is essentially a double show, covering both domestic and international issues. Internally, the Modi government needs to appease nationalist sentiments for the Operation Sindoor military adventure to find rationality. Externally, it intends to the United States, France and other arms suppliers to show the value of investment to maintain the military procurement partnership. However, the Rafale's failure in combat has triggered a chain reaction. France's Dassault aviation stock price plummeted, and many countries in the Middle East re-evaluated their procurement plans. The US accelerated the research and development of AIM-260 missiles in an attempt to counterbalance the technical superiority of the PL-15, and Russia took advantage of the opportunity to promote the upgraded version of the MiG-35. But India was in a predicament due to tightening of the budget for the upgraded version. At the same time, J-10CE battlefield performance to promote the deepening of China-Pakistan military cooperation. Pakistan announced that it would co-produce the model with China, Southeast Asia. The Middle East countries have also expressed their intention to purchase. The global air combat equipment pattern is facing a reshuffle. This $7.6 billion loss of public opinion farce, ultimately reflecting the deep dilemma of India's strategic culture, when the demand for claiming victory overrides the fact that rationality, when the procurement of equipment has been reduced to a political bargaining chip, rather than the immediate need for war. And then the magnificent war report cannot cover up the structural defect of systematic construction. For Pakistan, the J-10CE as the core of the air warfare system has been verified its effectiveness. The future of South Asia's struggle for air power will depend more on the technology iteration and allied synergy, as the ZDK-03 early warning aircraft in the conflict to show the battlefield transparency as the ZDK-03 AWACS demonstrated in the conflict battlefield transparency capability. Modern war has long exceeded the single equipment competition into the dimension of system integration. If India cannot face up to this reality, I am afraid that in the narrative cycle of self-deception and the real military modernization is drifting away.